Merci beaucoup, everybody. This is Wayne Nix and Looking for Good Cookin'. It's me and my wife and my friend Lance Fields from New Orleans. I like to call us the Trinity team. And today we're going to school you, as I have my t-shirt on. We're going to take you to the university. We're going to teach you a little bit about Catfish Courtbouillon. Is how you say that. It's not Courtbouillon. That's actually a different recipe. But before we get into that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my lovely wife, Dawn Nix, and then Lance Fields. Go ahead, Dawn.
Right. Hi, my name is Dawn Nix. I'm married to Wayne Nix. I help Wayne run the kitchen. I help run the cameras. I help Lance with whatever he needs. Just keep everything going as we cook some Catfish Courtbouillon today. Next, I'd like to introduce our other lovely co-host, and that's Lance Fields.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm ready to get schooled with Professor Wayne today of Wayne State University over there at Looking for Good Cookin'. Ready to bring you a good show. Let's get it rolling.
All right, but you know, before we get rolling, I'm going to go ahead and tell you this little story. The other day it was a Sunday and I went fishing. You know, I skipped out a little bit on church and I stopped at the gas station to get some gas and I ran into a nun and she says, Wayne, she said, did you skip church today? I said, well, sister, I can't lie. She said, well, where'd you go? I said, well, I went fishing. I have these goddamn fish. She said, Wayne, she says, you know I'm a nun. You can't talk to me like that. I said, no, sister. I said, you don't understand. I said, that's the name of the fish. They're called goddamn fish. And I showed her. She's like, oh, well, those are some nice fish. I said, well, you know what, sister? I said, I have plenty. I said, go ahead and take some. She says, that's mighty nice of you. She said, in fact, Wayne, we're having the cardinal over tonight for supper. Why don't you and your wife come? I said, well, that would be great. So here, take the whole mess of them. So she takes them to the church, and she's cleaning them. And then the father walks in, and the father says, sister, what are you doing? She says, well, I'm cleaning these goddamn fish. Father says, whoa, sister, you okay? You can't talk to me like that. She's like, no, you see, you don't understand. It's that Wayne Nix boy, right? He gave me these fish. They're called goddamn fish. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, I've heard of that. She says, well, I'll tell you what, sister. When you finish cleaning the goddamn fish, I'm going to cook the goddamn fish. Right? So later that evening, me and Dawn show up, and it's a few of us there from, you know, the town, and we're eating, and the cardinal's there, and we have a nice little dinner. And at the end of the dinner, the cardinal says, you know, this was a very nice fish. I've never had anything that tastes like that, you know, this good. I said, well, I have to tell you, I caught the goddamn fish. And the nun says, well, I cleaned the goddamn fish. And father says, well, I cooked the goddamn fish. And the cardinal looks at me and says, well, I ain't been here a day, and I already like you son of a bitches. All right. So anyway, that being said.
All right. Well, you got me right when you said you hit the nun. I was thinking, well, I thought you meant you hit or ran into the nun. I thought you meant you hit her with your car.
All right. So is anybody out in the audience right now wants to speak?
There is some people in the audience. There are some people in the audience. We have Jessica Maynard here today. We have Julie Caraccio. Let's see who else. I know I saw somebody else checked in. Kevin Burns checked in. Kim Boltman so far. I think everybody's probably still reeling from your goddamn fish joke. So let's give them a chance to catch up. So they can recover.
Sounds good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little butter, a stick of butter in a pan. And what I'm making is Catfish Courtbouillon, but it's my version, of course, like everything. So I have to go back and kind of modify the recipe. Now, traditionally, there's a Cajun version and a Creole version. But basically, to start out, I'm going to melt my butter, and then I'm going to put my Trinity in there. And my Trinity, of course, is the onions, the bell peppers, and the celery. I chopped all that up to kind of speed up the process. I'm going to let that saute and wilt for about 2 to 3 minutes. Then I'm probably going to grab some garlic out of the ice box, throw that in there. I also bought some mushrooms because Dawn wanted some mushrooms added to it. So I'll throw that with the Trinity as well when I'm cleaning that down. And the whole premise behind this dish, it's not so much cooking the fish as much as it is trying to get your gravy right. Now, traditionally, you would use a roux. We don't have time for that, right? Now, I could grab some old roux, and what I mean by that is roux that we bottled in a jar, and we can start it that way. But I'm going to show a little secret that's especially known in the Acadiana area is you can take like cream of mushroom, cream of celery, and cream of shrimp. Now, I have cream of shrimp today. But once I get these started, I can walk you through that process.
Okay,
Now,
real quick, Wayne. Let me pop in because we got a couple of comments about your joke. Particularly, and I think this is funny. One is from Billy Bass, which says, "Show us the goddamn fish." And then Kevin Burns says something in French. Don, I don't know if you can see it, but it says "oui," and then the word is there's a few words: JEVAIS. And then ICI. I don't have no idea what that means, and I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. I don't know.
Yeah, it means he's here.
Okay. Well, there you go. That wasn't so complicated. Jacqueline K. Mateo is joining us from Tennessee. We got Cheryl Deuce in the audience, and Kim Boltman did indeed pop in. So onward and upward. You did mention something about roux, and you were saying old roux, and what you meant was you had some ready-made, or some roux that you had previously made and just put in a jar, but you can also buy it too, right?
right, that's exactly what I was talking about.
But instead of that, today you're going to use the cream soup to thicken it, yes?
Cream of shrimp, correct. And you can use cream of mushroom or cream of celery. And I learned this trick actually by one of my friends going to a camp. And when we were out there, that's what we did. I've probably mentioned his name a few times.
A lot of people want to know. What's a camp, Wayne?
That's a good topic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that could actually mean a broad range of different things. But as you know, people think we live here on the bayou, and we kind of do. But there's even further civilization of us down the bayou. And what I mean by that is we have camps. Some of them are actually houseboats, which are on pontoons, and you can tow them by boats to get down there, or they're just some shack out in the middle of the forest, right, the woods, right beside the bayous, all over the place. Now, some of these can be as simple as getting pieces of debris and making a little shack, and some of them can be these full-blown houses with, a refrigerator inside, outside, four-wheelers underneath, satellite radio. And in fact, a good friend of mine, Ricky Carter, his mama, Sheila, right? They have a camp down, I can't remember, where is it? Do you remember? It's way down the bayou, by Fouchon, right? It's really down south. And what they're doing down there is that's their retirement home. And they almost have like a whole community down there now to where, I mean, they have everything. They have margarita machines. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. But they go red fishing all the time. And it's really something that, you never hear anybody saying, I'm retiring up north. It's always down south. So I have my fire on medium to medium high heat, which I just turned it up. I'm doing it on the stove because I'm cooking in this Dutch oven. I'm really wanting to get, a good simmer going on. And it's going to be a lot of ingredients in the pan.
And it's a loose dish, right?
Yeah, so again, it's basically a gravy. So courtbouillon is different from coubion. And coubion it's basically more like a fish stew. It's more thick. It's more hearty. So the courtbouillon, you don't even eat all the ingredients in it. It's more or less just a poached fish, and that's where it came from. And I came across that information from reading books from John Foss, that sort of thing. But it's really pretty interesting. It seems like over and over what seems to be a repetitive theme for Cajun and Creole is they like to leave everything in the pot. They don't want to waste nothing. Got it?
I stopped by the Hotel Monteleone the other day, and I looked at Criollo at their billboard, or their little placard menu out front. And they also do a coubion, which they spelled the same way that it's spelled for this event. And reading the ingredients, it was a Catfish Courtbouillon, and basically doing the same thing. So it's definitely a Creole Cajun style of cooking, and it's one that people are particularly familiar with once they've been in New Orleans or in southeast Louisiana for a while. Pretty much everybody knows what a coubion is. And it's not made with just catfish, is it, Wayne?
No, typically, it goes back to, Cajuns didn't have a lot of access to fresher, like fishes and butters and things like that. So the Cajuns did have access to a lot of catfish. They
Hmm.
typically used the catfish. The Creole usually had access to it, plus they had a little more money to spend. So, they could get fresh lemons and all these other things. And, of course, the tomatoes. They always seem to have tomatoes. And it goes back to what Creoles actually are. And I've been trying to research that some more, and I have a friend from work named Kim. I want to go and meet with the Creole Association. But what I've found so far is that Creole, the actual term, was first written like in the 1800s, and it was pretty much anybody born in the French colonies of Louisiana. So, and then of course all the history with the Spaniards and the African Americans and the Indians and all that kind of mixing together. That's what really truly Creoles are. Cajuns, now that's a whole different story. That's actually Dawn, all right? That's her lineage, and that's from Nova Scotia, and they were kicked out of Nova Scotia, Canada. And why was that, Dawn? Because they would swear at the king and not swear to the king, is what we like to say. So they were brought down here, and luckily at that time, that's when the Spaniards were, in control of the area, which has to go back to the Napoleonic Wars and all this other stuff. But basically, they gave them, a good plot of land down here. And the name Cajun actually comes from the word Acadian. Now, how that happened, I don't know. It got pretty butchered, but that seems to be what the going, I guess, what do you want to call it, Dawn? Pretty much that's what the going decision on everything is. Now, right now, I put a lot of vegetables in the pan, so it might take about 5 or 6 minutes.
Could you go over the vegetables that you put in there again?
Yes.
I wasn't exactly paying attention. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. No, so I put the butter in there. So it's a whole stick of butter, and I also added the Trinity, which is the bell pepper, the celery, and the onion.
Mhm.
But Dawn likes mushrooms, and the mushrooms actually give a little more flavor. So what I'm going to do is get these wilted down. Once they get wilted down, I'm going to throw in some garlic, and then at that point, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my liquids. I also have some parsley and some green onions that I'm going to also throw in there as well.
I have a quick question for you about mushrooms. A lot of times, a lot of dishes will call that the mushrooms would go in later so that they don't break down too much. But is that adding body to the sauce by putting the mushrooms in earlier on, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times what I'll actually do is I'll save half of this, and what you're trying to do is build upon flavor and build upon flavor.
Mhm.
But with this dish, it's really just a stew. So you're trying to make that thick gravy, and what I want to do is actually taste my gravy. Once I get it to where I have it, taste-wise, that's when I'm going to add the fish, and then you don't stir the pot. You just kind of shake it a little bit every now and then.
How was that?
You just shake it a little bit every. Shake it. Show me what you're working with. You know about that.
Hell yeah.
A little mystical. Huh?
There you go.
So, all right. So Dawn says she wants to say something in French, and she doesn't want to say any curse words. So, what do you have to say, babe?
I didn't have a whole lot to say today. Trying to translate a few of the recipes in French on our Looking for Good Cooking site. Later on, I'm going to add another recipe. It is in English. It's for a dessert. I did try this the other day. I made this dessert, brought it to work, and it seemed to go over pretty well. Bienvenue en Louisiane. Nous avons une autre recette. C'est une recette de lagniappe pour un dessert. And I think we still have it in the fridge because it needs to be cooled. But that was going to be our little lagniappe, which I think Wayne mentioned earlier today. Wayne, you want to tell everybody what lagniappe is?
So lagniappe is a tradition for Louisiana, and basically it's just giving you a little extra, whether that be an extra hug, an extra donut. When you buy a dozen of donuts, they give you 13, and there's no charge for it, right? It's just a way that we just show our expression of how much we appreciate you, we love you, those sorts of things. Now, what I'm doing real quick with the pan is my vegetables are wilted, so I'm going to go ahead and throw in all these liquids. And those liquids are going to take anywhere from about 20 to 25 minutes to simmer down. And what I have right here is a can of rotel. That's another one of my secrets. So I have rotel, I have some diced tomatoes, and I also have this shrimp. Now, anytime I do tomatoes, I always add in a pinch of sugar and a pinch of baking soda. And the reason I do that is, one is because I like the sugar, it tastes well, and the other one is to help get some of the acidity out of the acid. Did you know that, Lance?
I did, absolutely. Growing up, when my mother would make homemade spaghetti sauce, and the first time I saw her putting sugar into it, not a lot, mind you, but I don't know, maybe a teaspoon, and I asked her, and she said it helps it to cut the bite out of the tomatoes.
Right, that's it.
So since you were just talking about lagniappe, I'm going to bring this up really quickly. So just as I brought an example of lagniappe. I went to Rouse's yesterday, and I got some cookies. And with the cookies, I got this.
Oh, yeah.
Frisbee. So Rouse's, of course, which is a Thibodaux, Louisiana-based grocery store chain, their lagniappe version for the cookies was to give you a little Frisbee for free. And I checked just to make sure that it wasn't any different price than the same amount of cookies in the little plastic container or with the Frisbee. So needless to say, I got y'all a Frisbee because I got two. So that is an example of lagniappe. It can be anything, whether you're at a restaurant and they bring you a little oyster for a taste, or if, as Wayne said, they put a little something extra on the plate when you get served, or get a Frisbee at the grocery store. So that is a great example of lagniappe.
Okay, so I want my Frisbee when I see you next week. Now I put in a little bit of garlic, about 2 tablespoons, a little bit of tomato paste, and I just threw in some bay leaves. Now, do you know about bay leaves? We actually have one growing outside.
Mm-hmm. A lot of my friends here have bay leaf or bay trees and bring us bay leaves a lot. As a matter of fact, and I have some to give to you as well because we have so many of them.
All right, I'm going to add just a little bit of water, but it's already looking and smelling good over here, fellas. Can you see that?
That looks really, really good.
And it's not complicated, man. I mean, that's why I do like a lot of the cooking that I do. And today I was on Mark's show, HOAshows.com, me and Sugar Pants over here, and what we were talking about, was that we don't just do Cajun and Creole cooking. I mean, I don't just eat alligator and ducks and that sort of thing, right? So. But the reason I am doing all these Cajun and Creole foods is to show you that there's not one way to do it, but that is the foundation of where I come from, and that's how I started to learn how to cook. But I mean, I can get a little more complicated, and we'll probably even do like, potato encrusted catfish with the Creole Meuniere sauce or something like that. Those are things I learned from watching Emeril Lagasse, all these other famous chefs. But it was the foundations of the gumbos and the jambalayas that brings me back to the football games, that brings me back to all the churches, and it brings me back to the festivals that we have, every week it seems. Multiple festivals all throughout the year. And matter of fact, isn't there a fish festival next week in July?
It sounds right. I can't swear to it, but with over 400 festivals a year in Louisiana, there's something to do. Certainly every weekend, and oftentimes during the week, there are things going on.
And I was looking up the Catfish Festival in Des Allemands, and I did not find the date, but it was referenced that Des Allemands, close to New Orleans, has a Catfish Festival every year. It started with the priest. It started with the priest, I think, in 1975. Trying to do a fundraiser for the church roof, and it just kept growing and growing. So that was the Catfish Festival in Des Allemands. I just wanted to show the slide one more time. We've been talking for about 19 minutes, and we are fixing some catfish coubion on Looking for Good Cooking.
I don't see any questions from the audience just yet, but if y'all have any questions, Aslan Bloor has joined us, and let's see, Sunny Cadwallader is in the audience. She's showing up. So if anybody out there watching, Jessica wants to know if they're leftovers, will this freeze okay? Which is a great question. But honestly, Jessica Maynard, if I was over there, I don't think there would be any leftovers. But Wayne, can you freeze? Can you freeze coubion to reheat later?
You know, honestly, I do not know because it never lasts that long. But you know, fish is a delicate item, so I would imagine anytime you refreeze fish, it's gonna fall apart.
Yeah,
So,
I think it would break up. That seems.
yeah. So I would not recommend it. I also have some parsley that I went and grabbed from the yard that I'm gonna chop up. Now my catfish, let's see. I'm gonna look at maybe this one. Now these were actually frozen catfish. Not gonna lie to you. And why? Because the river was pretty flooded this weekend when we tried to go out there and do some catfishing with all this rain. And I know I wanted to take some pictures, and the next time we go, I'm going to take some pictures of what's called jug line fishing. Have you heard of that, Lance?
Are you asking me? No, I haven't. What is it?
All right. Now, the first time I've seen of that, jug line fishing, was when I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. And what they used to do back then, of course, is to get like the old 2-liter bottles and basically take some trout line, and you cap the bottle to where you have air in it. You put some trout line, and you have a sinker weight that's way at the bottom. Probably, you know, you make them different sizes, and you go up about 6 to 12 inches, and you put a couple different hooks, some 12-aught hooks, you know, and on there you put some gizzards, some old chicken or something like that. And basically what you do is you get in the boat or walk along the riverbank, and you just toss them out. You know, you keep going, kind of trolling, you toss them out. And then you go back to the camp, and you drink beer. Right? And then you get back in the boat, either you'll see these jug lines just coming down the river because you put them upstream. That way when you're sitting downstream, you can see them come. And you know if the jug's going upstream, well, you must have a fish, right? And also if it's sitting there jugging along. But I say that's how we used to do it in the old day, because now you have everything's getting modernized, where you have these things on like these big noodles, and like you were swimming, those swimming noodles. You can make that with PVC pipe. You can make them real complicated, but basically all you need is a bunch of old 2-liter bottles, and that'd be recycling. So I don't know if that falls into what a sustainable change, but it definitely sustained my belly with a bunch of catfish.
So I have a quick question from Jacqueline Mateo, and she wanted to know if it was white or yellow onion in the butter at the beginning, and then I'm going to add on my little part of the question is, does it make a difference if you use a white or a yellow onion?
Honestly, I always use yellow onions, and typically that's because that's just what I've always cooked with. Vidalia onions, yellow onions, they come in a bag, they're cheaper. I think the whites might be a little more bitter.
That's what I was thinking. I always find white onions to be a bit stronger bite.
Right.
So you always start with a yellow onion.
Yeah, it's a little more sweeter onion. Everything that we do, we like to try and get more sugar. So other than that, right now we're just going to kind of let this thing simmer. And after about another 15 minutes, I'll add the fish in, and it'll probably take about another 15 to 20 minutes for that to finish cooking. Now, what I have added to it is just a little lemon juice, and I'm just going by taste. So I'll taste it, see what I like. I'll throw in the fish. I actually threw a little bit of flour and cornstarch mixture just to put something on there. That way it'll actually help to thicken up the stew. Mm-hmm. And I also put some Creole seasoning. That could be Tony Chachere's, that could be Old Bay seasoning. It's whatever you like. That, and just salt it. Again, the base of the stew is what's really going to be the flavor, and all these fresh vegetables, the peppers, the tomatoes, and all that. It's really good stuff, man. And to mention, we cooked my rice before the show. So, if you don't have a rice cooker, that's one thing you have to invest in. It'll save you time and money and get your rice perfect every time.
So it made me think of a question, seasonings. So while I'm trying to remember what I was just going to ask you, will you go over the seasonings list that you put in, salt, pepper, etc.?
Okay. So besides the fresh vegetables, so we put the Trinity in, and with the Trinity, I also threw in some mushrooms. And with the mushrooms, I threw in a little bit of garlic. And after the garlic, I threw in a couple bay leaves. And after the bay leaves, I threw in some, with the tomato sauce and the diced tomatoes, the chilies, and the cream of shrimp. Then I threw in a little bit of lemon. I just took half a lemon, squirted it in there, put a little bit of tomato paste, and a little bit of green onion, and that's it so far.
Any salt or pepper, or is that when you serve it?
I have not put any salt or pepper in it yet. I'm not big on salt, and when I cook with salt, I always use kosher salt.
Yeah.
These tomatoes have a little salt in them.
Yeah, I'm not a big salt person either. I tend to go lighter on it because, as we all know, you can always add more salt, but once it's in there, you're SOL basically. All right. Yeah, I really don't. I don't salt too much.
Now, if you put too much salt in anything, sometimes a trick is you can throw a potato in there.
Depends on what the dish is, though, right?
Yeah, definitely. You don't want it tasting like potato sometimes. But let's see. Can you see that?
So with coubion, that's a dish that you would always serve immediately when it's ready, or is it something that you could let sit and simmer for a while?
Traditionally, this dish was made to simmer over 4 to several hours.
Wow.
Right? And they would say 5 to 7 bubbles is what you want. So you really want like a slow bubble.
Yeah.
And then you put you some nice wood under there, like some pecan or some, something like that, and it would just give to that smell. So traditionally, it was done in a cast iron pot, and then more of a Dutch oven. And what I have is a enamel Dutch oven. So I'm kind of taking those things and just merging everything together. But I love my cast iron. In fact, if Crusette wants to donate some extra ones, I would mind taking them. You know what I'm saying?
So I have a question from Aslan Bloor, which I can actually answer, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it anyway. So there's a little issue with you using canned soup, and people are saying that they would never dream of using anything out of a can, certainly not for. And she says courtbouillion, but we're actually making coubion. But she wants to know, why would you choose, and I know the answer, but why would you choose using canned soup for a homemade dish? And I put homemade in quotes because I added that to it.
Right. Well, what I'm trying to do, Aslan, is like I mentioned earlier in the show, traditionally what you could do, or what you would do, is you would start with the roux. But I also know there's a lot of people out there strapped for time. And, I gave the example when we were at our camp. That's what we would do too, because you just don't have time to sit there and make a roux. Now, what I'm trying to do is just enlighten people that you can still have basically a home-cooked meal and still use some canned ingredients. Like even the tomatoes, I mean, some people give me grief about that, but the point of that is these tomatoes are really picked at the peak of ripeness, just like most fruits. And anytime you can have fresh fruits, of course, the better. So, yes, I totally agree with Aslan. So, and she has a great show. But again, it's, I'm trying to modernize kind of what the Cajun and the Creole and all the cooking that we do, and basically show what we do every week. Because I'm not going to sit there and make a roux every week. I'm just not. But I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
It did. And then as a follow-up to that, my question is about roux. So let's say if I was making coubion with roux, and I had a jar of roux in the fridge, how much would I start with? For the amount that you're making today, how much roux would I need? A quarter cup, a half cup, 1 cup?
Well, to make a roux, it's I would say a cup, because you're going to do a cup of oil usually to a cup of flour, or maybe a little less. And the roux that you'd want to use for this is a dark roux, almost like a chocolate roux. So if we were to rewind and start all over, I would actually take that butter, I'd probably cut half that butter with olive oil, and go ahead and throw in my flour and just start making a roux like that. I would start browning my gravy or browning the flour, and then once it was getting real brown and it got to a certain point, I would throw in my vegetables, specifically my onions first, and try and get that roux going. And then I would have some fish stock. So yeah, so to take this even further, if I would have caught the fish, preferably you fillet the fish, debone the fish, take the bones out, and you actually make, basically a fish stock on the side. This could be like an all-day event.
So now I'm going to go back to there's a little communication situation we have with Aslanette. She spelled the word courtbouillion, and you're making coubion, and you told us the difference at the beginning you told us at the beginning there's a difference between coubion and courtbouillion.
Correct.
And so is the spelling for both the same? So if I went to a restaurant and said I wanted a coubion,
yep,
would I get a courtbouillion?
There's a space in between. That's about it. So you have courtbouillon and then coubion. And that's what I was saying about, when the French and the Spaniards came over and the Cajun people, it used to be a courtbouillon would be to poach fish, but this is not to poach fish. This is more like a stew. Okay. And with the addition of the tomatoes, and you're leaving everything in the pot, you're not taking everything out.
So this is the Cajun interpretation of courtbouillon.
Right, just like the word, how did it get Cajun out of Acadian? I don't know, but just over years, that's kind of what happened.
Okay. So just to clarify, because I wanted to make sure that
Aslan can come into the green room after, if she wants. I know we're probably already 30 minutes. Right now, I'm actually going to put my fish in after I taste it one more time. Where my spoon went. Any other questions right now? And if there's somebody that wants to come into the green room, tell them to let us know.
Well, Mark Seidel is here, Mr. Mark H.O.A. Seidel, and he wanted to know, I don't know where he got first, but he wanted to know if he could have seconds. So if he's there tasting with you off screen, I'm gonna be a little peevish about it, but not too much. I almost said about one of the only things I know in Cajun, which is cursing. So I'm glad I didn't say it because it's something that you would say, well, not on camera. I can tell you right now. Anyway, oh man, that's looking really good. So now you just lay the fish on top?
Yep, I'm just going to lay the fish on top, cover it, put it on a low simmer, and these fish will swim right down to the bottom. And then we'll come back in about 15 minutes. And
so that fish is so fresh it's still swimming.
That's it. And people, Wayne, you didn't wash your hands. That's my secret sauce, right? That's the little secret flavor. So
that's a little more Cajun humor for all y'all watching the show. Just so you know.
That's right. So, and I have been watching. And that's it. So I'm gonna put the lid on it. I got it on low, medium low, and then we'll talk to y'all in the green room.
All right. So,
any last?
One thing I noticed y'all had. Did you post that little dessert lagniappe recipe?
Oh no, let's talk about that real quick. And then look, I'm gonna throw in some parsley too, just so you see. Which camera you want?
There we go.
So we did post the recipe. I don't know if Dawn flashed it on the screen or not.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So, what about that? Can you see?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
It is, and what did we call it? The white. Let me pull it back here.
White fruitcake fudge.
White fruitcake fudge. I did adapt it from another recipe that I had found. It was originally like a winter dish. It was in maybe a December issue. It does kind of remind you of fruitcake. It does have some raisins, some apricots. We have pecans here, so I use my local pecans. To me, it just looks summery as well. And lately, I've been doing a lot of desserts to kind of go along with Wayne's main dish. So I wanted to post it and see if anybody liked it.
Cool. So that's a little lagniappe for y'all, right?
Okay, and we'll drop it into the stream when we're done. And we're hoping to have our website up by the next show, just to let you know. Any other questions?
So far, no. We just have mostly people are hungry. pretty much it. Larry Fornillier showed up, said it looks delicious. Let's see if I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Cheryl Deuce, of course. I don't think I mentioned her. Hi, Cheryl. Sorry about that. Not Just Olive Oil is watching as well. I saw Owen Ellis had checked in, and I'm pretty sure I got everybody else. If I missed anybody, I certainly didn't mean to, but now I'm starving.
Okay.
And I ate, again, as I've learned my lesson after that first show, that I eat a lot before, before coming on here. Oh, I did have one little thing I wanted to say before we sign off.
Okay.
I have an idea, and I want to just, this is kind of a little teaser for the audience. I know we have talked about it a little bit, but I'm trying to coordinate being able to go to some of the restaurants, and because I know a lot of restaurant people here in New Orleans, is go to do a live remote HOA from one of the restaurants here in New Orleans, and I'm just going to stop right there because it's just getting into the works, and it's not, what do you call that? A little tease.
You got to check back.
Yep.
All right. Any other call to actions? I know you follow NOLA.com, right?
I'm actually, it's not NOLA.com, it's NewOrleansOnline.com, and I do the Visit New Orleans page for Google Plus and the Hotel Monteleone, and obviously looking for Good Cookin.
Thanks. All right, Dawn, you have anything?
I'd like to ask anyone just to visit our site, Looking for Good Cookin. We should have our website up within the next 2 weeks. We're open to suggestions. We'd like any suggestions for recipes. Did you try it at home? Did you like it? Did you prefer redfish or shrimp? Desserts. We went blueberry picking last week. It is blueberry season. The peaches are coming out. Does anyone have a request? Do they have a picture? Have they ever been to Louisiana? I'm going to start posting some more pictures just like of our blueberries from last week. Maybe the next dessert could be like a blueberry cobbler. Just let us know.
All right. Cool. So we do not have a recipe picked for our next show, but we're going to meet with you, Lance, within the next several days. We're going to shoot some pictures and hopefully some video when we get down there as well. We're going to talk about all that. We are going to try and get, more shows under our belt, get a lineup for people locally too. Because again, we want to go out and film not just what's in my kitchen, but what's in my neighbor's kitchen, that sort of thing. So that being said, I'm going to say merci beaucoup, everybody. And we will see you next time. And if you want to be into the green room, just go ahead and click the little link that we'll drop in later. And that's about it. So see you next time.
All right. Bye, y'all. Hooray!